are you worried about winter camping because you're scared you might get cold? Or maybe you've been winter camping and you did get cold. Well, don't fret. This is the video for you. Hello, I'm Lucy. Welcome back if you're a subscriber. If you're new, then I'd love for you to join the adventure and give the channel a subscribe. It's here that we talk about everything and anything adventure related. In this video, I'm going to share a few simple ways to ensure that you stay warm in the cold, but also get a good quality sleep during the night so that you can go on and take on the next day full of energy. I want you to love sleeping outside as much as I do. So these are my tried and tested tips that I've come to really rely on during my adventures, whether that be on Denali at -40 or in the freezing temperature in the Arctic, or just camping in your local area, which sometimes can feel the coldest of all, I tell you. Just before I start, I want to let you into a little secret, and that is I sleep cold. So many times I've heard people say that they don't want to go on a backpacking trip or go to cold environments because they're the type of person who just gets cold. Well, so am I. But there are some magical, simple, effective ways to make sure that we all sleep comfortably. And I bet some of them will surprise you as well. So, are you ready? Okay, let's get into it. First up, before the temperature dropping night comes in, we've got to make sure that we're wearing the correct kits in the actual day, so to ensure that we don't sweat. Because sweating, of course, is water. Sure enough, we're going to get cold. And the other thing, our clothes and socks are going to be damp from all that sweat. And if there's one thing that will get you cold fast, it's wet clothes. You just do not want this. So give yourself the best chance early on and wear the right kind of layers. I find that things like merino wool or any sort of wool as base layers and socks work best to wick away that moisture. But remember, when you're moving in the winter, you're still going to sweat and get hot. So if you're moving and you're getting too warm, stop as soon as you think of that and strip down your layers. It's very easy to just want to keep going and just grit your teeth and go on. But it's very, very rare, I tell you, that if you're going to wear your big down jackets while you're moving. It's just way too overkill most of the time. Saying that though, there have been some times where I have had to wear my big down jacket. But let me tell you, boy, that was blooming cold, I tell you.
It's not always this cold in the Arctic. I'm pleased to know that this jacket is keeping me warm.
So throughout the day, if you're expending lots of energy, stay on top of your food and your hydration. On the colder expeditions I've guided, I've always noticed that guests, they don't have that appetite. They don't think they need to eat or drink as much because it's cold, which is just crazy because I'm telling you, you do. Like, you're expending the same amount of energy. So keep up with this because that will just help you regulate your temperature later on in the day. Now, the best thing to ensure a good warm night's sleep in the winter is where you're going to sleep. So have a real think about the position and the location of your camp. Location is super, super important. So places like a small wood, a forest, are going to keep they're going to trap the heat and just remain warmer during the night, as well as protect you from the elements like wind and snow more than just being out in the open anyway. But of course, it's not always possible to get woods or camps. Sometimes you're just out in the open and there's nowhere to go. And I know that is the case a lot of the time, especially up north or on the mountains. So once I've found a good location and set up my camp, I then need to layer my clothes on and keep reasonably active. Don't let yourself get cold in this period. I know how tempting it can be when you've put up your tent or you've got your bivvy ready. You just want to crawl in there and just sort of chill out literally for a few minutes. But try not to, because later on this will just mean that you're just going to get cold. So if you've been good with keeping up on your layering throughout the day, then you shouldn't be sweaty. So put on your insulation, extra layers, your down jacket, whatever you might have, when you stop, and trap that heat that you've worked so hard to create. Because it is hard-earned heat that you've made during that movement in the day. And if you're not trapping it, then it's just going to escape into mid-air. After you've set up and got your extra layer on, I often change my socks. I have a nighttime and a daytime pair. Woolly socks, both of them. Put the socks you've been wearing in the day either in your leggings, next to your thighs or your armpits. That way they can dry off, and the bonus is that in the morning they'll be nice and toasty when you put them on again, which is a real Much nicer thing than frozen socks. You don't want frozen socks to start with, that's not good. Right, so you got your shelter up, you got your layers on. It's now here that I usually drink whatever I have left in my bottle and also have some sort of snack bar or something. It's good to do this and drink earlier on in the evening because this will help make sure that you empty your bladder before you sleep. But don't worry if you have a small bladder or a quick bladder or whatever it is, there is a solution if you need a wee in the night, and we'll come on to that shortly. Now let's talk about my setup. So I'm going to demonstrate here without a tent because my tent's basically all at home and I'm not at home at the moment. It's locked down, I got stuck here, long story. But nevertheless, you always need a good sleeping bag, whether you're bivying in the winter or if you're camping, of course. So look at the temperature ratings. Think about where you're going, what the conditions are going to be like, the average temperature is going to be like. And one thing to note is that the comfort rating isn't what you will be comfortable at. It's really important to know this. It's actually kind of confusing. The comfort rating is what you will survive at. So, of course, with sleeping bags, the colder rating you go, the more expensive they'll become. And they can get very, very expensive, let me tell you. There's also the choice between synthetic and down. They have their pros and cons. It's best to do some research and figure out what will best suit you. Next, think about what is going to be in between you and the ground. The ground is the one thing that will sap your energy from you and your heat as soon as it gets a chance. So you have to raise above it and trap any heat that you're creating. So a good pad or thermarest will do great to sort of separate you. But also, as well as the thermarest, you'll need a mat underneath, foam mat. The mat not only adds extra insulation, but it also protects the air mat from any sharp or bumpy objects that might be on the ground, as well as the water that so often forms on the bottom of tents, especially if you're camping in snow. And with your sleeping bag, make sure it fits well. If it's too big, it's not the end of the world. If there is lots of space, then you're gonna, especially the feet, then you're gonna need to stuff things down there so you don't have extra air to heat up and take your unnecessary energy from you, whether it be down jacket or fleeces. Put it over your feet and it'll also make it extra cozy too. One thing that I do as well is pop something at the bottom of the tent where my feet are. So if during the night I move and my feet slip off the mat, which it seems to do a lot, I have something between my feet and the cold floor of the tent. So something between my feet, like a tent bag or a dry bag, anything like that, so that if your feet does hang off the end, then they won't get cold. I also put something at the side of the tent, so if I press up against the side of the tent in the night, then I have extra added insulation. The hips often get really cold at that point. Next, a sleeping bag liner. Some people think it doesn't do a lot apart from keep your sleeping bag clean. Well, I disagree. It definitely adds a lot of warmth, I tell you. And even if it's just getting into your sleeping bag as well as the liner, doing that bum shuffle that you've got to do to get everything in the right position, that will make you warm regardless. But I definitely do think that sleeping bag liner adds extra warmth. So we've found our campsite, we've got our kit, we've got our layers on, new socks. Before we get into bed, we've got to make sure we eat and drink something hot for dinner because your body is an internal furnace and you need to fuel it to keep that fire in your belly hot. If it's super cold, you might also want to heat up a hot water bottle, like make a hot water bottle. Make sure it's a bottle that can handle hot water. Put it into a bottle and it can double as a drink in the morning as well. Best place to put this is probably by your feet where there's that extra space. You're also most likely to get cold first. But do make sure it's not touching your skin directly though. I've done this before where I've had freezing thighs and I put the water bottle just directly onto the skin, hadn't noticed, and it just doesn't turn out well. So make sure you've got something between your skin and the hot water bottle. Right, before bed, one thing we need to remember is to go to the loo. This is important. Needing a wee in the night and pretending that feeling is going to go away is the best way to get the worst night's sleep ever. So empty your bladder. Needing a wee in the night not only keeps you up, but it also sucks that heat from you. Your body is desperately trying to heat up this unwanted liquid. And so you're wasting energy when this energy could be going to places like your feet, your torso, your hands. So do just get rid of that liquid. If you do need to pee in the night, then have no fear. That is why we have a pee bottle. Now, I talked about this in the last video, but the pee bottle is something that you will grow to love. All I can say is, girls, practice in the bath, become a pro. Boys, it's a little easier, I understand that. But if you do need to pee, then you don't need to go into the elements. Instead, as soon as you think you need to go, then you can go in your bottle, and then you've got a lovely, lovely warm bottle to cuddle. Just make sure that, like I said in the last video, you have a different water bottle colour to your pee bottle so you don't get mixed up in the night, especially if you need that drink in the night. Make sure you know what I'm saying. Right, before jumping straight into your sleeping bag and thinking that's where you'll heat up, you've got to heat yourself up beforehand. A good sleeping bag, no matter how good it is, isn't going to heat you up if you're freezing cold. Best thing to do, star jumps, any sort of exercise, sprint on the spot, jog on the spot, jump around, anything to get your heart rate up and blood flowing so that when you get into your bag, you are already warm and toasty and you can put that heat that you've just created into your bag and trap it and keep nice and cozy. So I usually don't sleep in loads of layers, but just my base layers with my hat and my buff. And on freezing temperatures, I will also have my little down booties, which are awesome. Down booties are great, and you put those over your woolen socks. I just find that I'm often warmer in less clothes and using my sleeping bag to its full advantage instead of having loads on. But I know that some people prefer wearing more in their sleeping bag, and if you don't know which team you're in because this is your first time, then I'd say try less clothes first, and then if in the night, if you do get cold, you can just add more on.
I think this might be the coldest I've ever been in. And I have both in half our sleeping bags and half our down jackets. We reckon we're in for a cold night.
Actually, saying that, the one bit of the body that I do take extra care of is going back to my thighs. Like ladies, we often get cold bums and thighs much more than guys do, and it often can happen without realising. So by having some sort of insulated shorts, down shorts, or extra layers wrapped around that area, it will just protect that part of the body that bit better and mean that when you put your hands down to touch your thighs in the night, they don't feel like ice blocks, which you don't want. Now, most people think they've got a sleeping bag and so that's that. Well, there is actually a specific way to use sleeping bags. It can be really tempting, can't it? You get into a sleeping bag and you get up and you put the hood over and you curl up into the fetal position with your head over everything. But that won't do any good. By having your face inside, you're going to breathe out. There's going to be moisture in the bag, which is just going to make it wet and cold. And of course, one thing you do not want is a wet sleeping bag, because a wet sleeping bag, it can mean that things escalate and things get dangerous later on. So keep your nose and your mouth out of your sleeping bag, however tempting it might be. The way to do this is use the 2 sleeping bag cords correctly. I mean, most sleeping bags have 2 cords. One of them is on the hood, and you can cinch this really tight around your face and make sure your nose and mouth are out. The other important cord is around the neck of the bag, and apparently it's called a graph collar, but don't quote me on that. But it certainly is a great feature that lots of people don't use to its full advantage, and sometimes people don't even know it's there. So get that collar bit really tight, or reasonably tight. Don't suffocate yourself, obviously. And it will trap the warmth, basically, so when you inevitably move in the night, you won't puff out that precious air that you've spent all night creating. Finally, before bed, make sure that you've got all the things that might freeze in your sleeping bag. I mean, this might be batteries for camera, it might be gas canisters, toothpaste that you don't want frozen. Also include a snack bar that you can easily access in the night. On Denali, we were stuck in a storm for 2 weeks, and on those 2 weeks we literally slept with everything except the kitchen sink inside there. It sounds uncomfy, but you soon get used to it, and maybe think back to your childhood days with all your teddies in your bed, except this time it's probably just hard, solid, often metal things. Same thing, right? Now, if you do get cold during the night, you can eat that snack bar that you've got in your bag. And maybe whilst you're eating it, do some sit-ups in your sleeping bag to pump the blood around your body. It's amazing how quick a little bit of movement can get us warmer. The snack bar should preferably be something that is fast-releasing energy, so anything really that has sugar in it will do the trick. You can apologise to your dentist later.
I'm sorry.
This food will help keep that internal furnace I talked about earlier fueled up until the morning. Lastly, let me end with this little tip. Know where your head torch is during the night. If it's super cold, keep it in your sleeping bag, know where it is, don't lose it. I have a little tiny petrol one that I keep in the sleeping bag zip that I have at the top. If you need that snack bar in the middle of the night, or you need to pee in the night, you know where your head torch is. It also means that you're less likely to confuse your pee bottle with your water bottle too. Always good. So with all of these tools, I hope that this will give you the confidence to get out into the cold winter nights to camp. I know that if you do these things, you'll get a warm and comfortable night sleep and become a total convert to winter camping and know the benefits it can bring. I mean, who knows, maybe you'll join me on one of my Arctic expeditions soon. Thanks for watching. I upload a video every 2 weeks on a Thursday at 2 p.m. And if there are any specific adventure related videos that you'd like to see, or if there are any tips for winter camping that I haven't mentioned here, then please comment below so that others can benefit from your secrets as well and we can all enjoy winter camping as much as I think we should do. I'll see you next time for some more adventure talk. Bye. Thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. And here's a bonus tip if you get cold in the night. If you have one of these woofers, then why don't you use that as an excuse to cuddle it all night? Not that I need an excuse to cuddle you, hey? Especially a big one like you.